On with the current Kia, and Amy is so kindly going to let us know on that.
Sure.
Whakataka te ao ki te uru, whakataka te ao ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tāi, kia hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, turuturu o whiti whakamawa, kia tina, huie, taukia.
And we've got, thank you for that, we've got Mike and Jonathan on Zoom. If we don't see your hand up, could you just yell? Just, you know, we don't want to miss anything. Thank you. And we've got an apologies from me, Benita, which I'll call for to be sustained. Do I have a seconder for that? Craig, all those in favour say aye. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on with item 1, which is on page 6, and that's the audit and risk meeting minutes of 16th of June.
I'm happy to move that they are a true and correct record.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that, Alan? Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against? Any discussion on those minutes? Anything that anyone wants to bring out? The Mate Maru joint management agreement was signed last week, so that was a step forward. And I don't think there's anything else. Okay, well, we'll move on to the financial and operation report on page 11 of your agenda, and Amy will take us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, financial and operational report and May overall financial result presented there, noting the comments around the significant income and expenditure variances for the second to last month of the financial year, and those variances under budget, both due to delays in legislative changes, but also permanent changes with staff vacancies and the like not being replaced and absorbed. No lease changes or common seals to report this month. And as some of you have noted, there is a section there regarding endowment lands. So we thought at this time to bring this to the committee following last month's review of bad debts for the end of the financial year, just to give an understanding about the leasehold and endowment titles that are owned by the property, and for which I'm happy to give some further background on that. But really whether there would be any appetite to explore options regarding converting the land from leasehold to freehold. It would require a local bill and a substantial and lengthy and costly legal process to do it. And there would be a lot of considerations with that in amongst the current local government changes, but I did want to open that for a conversation so that the committee could decide whether there was any interest in exploring that further.
Just a question.
Happy to take any.
The leaseholds are held by whom? The port or the iwi or?
So it's the regional council. So going back to the formation of the Taranaki Harbours Board and legislation back to 1875, they ended up with them, and in 1989 came across to the regional council. So we've got 44 leases across 20 titles and derive about 1.6 million in leasehold income every year. Those properties were bought for the building of the port, so they are held in trust and cannot be sold. So we derive leasehold income to offset rates, but they cannot be sold. They do have very long lease titles, mostly 21-year leases, and as those come up for renewal, that has either been difficult to get that across, with the existing leaseholders, or find a market for them. So that is something that is becoming more difficult.
What do you mean by that, Amy?
So because there's such long leases, the increase in the rent only goes up at the end of the term. So after 21 years, when the new
And do we
valuation
not have an
comes in.
ability to negotiate better terms for a renewal?
Yes, so we go and seek an independent valuation, they seek an independent valuation. We do have the ability for some of them to provide shorter lease terms.
Well, not so much the term of the lease. What I'd be interested in is further consideration of rental along that term. I mean, by all means, take a 20-year lease, but review the rental quarterly or 4-yearly or 5-yearly.
Yes.
As opposed to a chunk again, because I've certainly acted with people who've struggled with that,
Understood.
but it equally results in a poor return to us because that they effectively set the rent for such an extended period of time.
Yeah, I mean, I just qualify that with having some understanding of the sort of stuff. They are there. Some of them are in very desirable locations, and they do have good properties on them, but most banks, or just about all the banks, they won't lend to commercial property owners, especially, or any of them, with your building on leasehold land. So in that sense it becomes quite undesirable or quite difficult, whereas with a standard commercial property that you own the land, you can obviously you can borrow against it, but these ones, that they're tough to buy, they're tough to purchase, they're tough to build on, unless the company has other sources of cash, because banks, for some reason, even though, like you say, the leases can last just about forever, because most of them are perpetual leases too. So I think the market recognises that, valuers will recognise that when they revalue the leases, and they're relatively low, I guess, for that, and the values of the properties that are sitting on them are low because of that too. A little bit like the leasehold properties, residential properties out at Waitara. That's why the values were quite low, because you couldn't freehold them. They're always going to be leasehold, and you're always going to be up for that, paying that lease to the owner of the land every now and then. My question is, I mean, there's a number of things you've raised, but one is, does the 1.6 million that we get in rates cover administering them? That would be one question, and managing them, I suppose. I'm sure I would. And the other one would be, would there be any point going down this path of trying to freehold them if we're not going to exist in 2 or 3 years' time? But surely that would be a job for the next entity or some minister to decide to do a similar thing across the country.
Yeah. So yes,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's daft for us to be doing it.
Yeah.
I was just, how many of them would be strategically important to council or the board?
So through you,
Or
Chair,
not.
just to answer your questions first there, Craig. So yes, the annual cost of operating them is low, depending on valuations that we have to get in, and legal expenses if there are a number of renewals in that year, but it is a low cost and that more than covers it. In regards to the property split there, 5% residential and 95% commercial. We have, over the years...
Did you say 95% commercial?
Yes, so have had over the years, but are not currently aware of what the appetite is for any of those leaseholders to purchase it, but the Port and other properties have inquired about purchasing those at the time because of their location and proximity to the port.
Has anyone done that? Gone through the process of purchasing their leasehold land, and what did it cost them?
Yes, so through you, Chair, back in 2012 an exercise was done with advice sought from Simpson Grierson to go through all of those titles and determine if any of them could be sold, and there were some at that time held for educational purposes in or Central New Plymouth, which were sold at that time, with the remainder all being cannot be sold, subject to a change.
Yeah,
I think we sold some on Bell Street, Mike, didn't we?
Correct, yeah.
Mike, was it Bell Street we sold?
What tends to happen is the residential ones and the centre of, and education ones in the centre of New Plymouth, the endowments allowed for relatively straightforward and easy sale. The property, as a general rule of thumb, whereas the commercial and residential properties in and around the port, their endowments had far stronger restrictions on our ability to sell.
And that all require legislative change to do.
That's right, and I think through you, Chair, as you have, a few of you quite rightly pointed out, that the complexity and the cost of undertaking this at such a time with local government reform is considerable, whether you would want to go down that, but given some of the discussion and with with the risk that the council carries regarding the leasehold rentals, I thought it was time to bring that to this meeting to have this discussion and see if there was any appetite to consider that further, or whether you think that should be something that could be reviewed at the same time as further local government changes.
I just wondered though if it's worth exploring some of those ones that have shown an interest in purchasing. Whether the legal fees could be offset against that cost.
But it's more than legal fees, Tom. You have to get legislative change.
Yeah, but I just wondered whether if they would pay a little bit of that. I don't know.
So those properties, by and large, those properties that are able to be sold freeholded have been done so, and the process for us to go through that is reasonably bureaucratic but reasonably straightforward. And so if there are any leaseholders that wish to freehold and we have the ability to sell, we do that as a matter of course. It's in alignment with your investment policy and your LTP. What we do with the core of properties that are left that we cannot sell at this stage, we've either got a choice. We deal with them in bulk and get that authority changed so we can freehold them, or we say look, the timing's not right, there's too much else on our plate, let's leave that for another day, maybe wrap that up in the legislation that creates the new entities out of reorganisation. But we then have to accept that from time to time we're going to have increased risk of dealing with issues like bad debts and rates, like we did at our last meeting. So that's basically the choice. And our advice to you is at this stage is probably the former, leave well enough alone at the moment, but just accept you've got that increased risk.
Chair, I'll just declare an interest in one of the leasehold properties. Okay. If there is a decision to be made, I'll step away from it.
Has anyone got any further discussion? No. I just wondered then if we should just have a recommendation on this, that at this stage we don't wish to proceed any further with freeholding the leasehold lands and put it as a minute because it's not covered under the recommendations.
We should cede, did you say?
Pardon?
Succeed, what was the word you used?
No, we should not carry on.
Right.
With the.
You said decide.
Yeah, the exploring the leasehold land into freehold, but I just think we should really just have a minute of recommendation on that. Is everyone happy with that? If we can just write something into that, and we'll just include that with the recommendations. Is everyone quite comfortable?
Shouldn't we have a motion to do?
Well, I just thought if we could just add it into the recommendations, the motion will be as one. Will it not? I seek advice. Will it not?
It'll work that way.
I don't think we need to make a specific thing of it. We just added into the recommendations. It's under item 9.
Well, it could be simply after discussion that was resolved that no further steps towards freeholding be taken at this time, given the changes to local government.
Thank you, our lawyer. See, that's all done for you. That's why you're on the brainy side instead of the dumb side.
Oh, now you're going to make Bronwyn and Craig.
Oh, no, it was the naughty side, wasn't it? Sorry,
That's
I
right.
stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
Strike that out of everything. Okay, well, let's include that in then, and I'm quite happy to move the recommendations on page 11. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Susan? Okay, all those in favour say aye. Against, carried.
Aye.
Okay. Everyone happy? Right, now we'll go on with the risk management report, and we've got Bronwyn Muir here for that.
Can I just step back a little bit? Under that financial report, can I ask, page 34, where it's got the new build and extra site works, is that over and above the budgeted amount for the new build?
No, through you, Chair, that's all well within the budget for the new build. The capital expenditure movements for the month are included in that table, so that 830,000 is just simply what was spent within the budget for that month and added to the capital work in progress
I must
total.
have missed the previous one's costings coming through that same area. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, so not only is the project that's all within budget, but it's also within scope. There's been no change to the scope of the project. So you'll see the bottom line there is preparations for the demolition of the two-storey white land management building. And the work on the main administrative building is all within scope as well as budget.
Okay, thank you. Is that Alan? Satisfied? Okay, well now we'll move on to Bronwyn, please. Your report on page 39.
Thank you, Chair. So presented the Corporate Risk and Assurance Health, Safety and Wellness Report for July 2026. Just a few things to note. It is the reset time of year for us as an operational team, so there will be a lot more reference in future reports to the risk team, which is how we view ourselves now, and this report reflects our take on our current position and where we're looking for the next 12 months. So hopefully, if there's any questions around that, please let me know. Also noting that the way this meeting's fallen, the end of year and Q4 reviews of risk are due to be completed by the end of July. So they're still in the process of being closed out, but we're about 90% there now, which is good. The only movement on new risks is I have prepared a memo for the operations team to consider around adding biosecurity risk into our register specifically, with a sub-risk of the H5N1 bird flu, which is obviously very much an emerging risk for us, or for the whole of New Zealand, but how that will affect us. The Environment Services team obviously are well organised and well prepared on that front, but actually having it recognised within our system, I believe, is important. So that's out for consideration currently. I did have one question that came through from the last report that I don't feel we sort of had an answer on, and that was around the high risk review frequency. So currently in the framework, anything that's high should be on a monthly review cycle. We've got some on quarterly, some on monthly, and any extreme risks obviously are probably sitting more in that emerging or heightened risk space for whatever reason, and they are under monthly management oversight and review and reflection. The consideration for the committee is if a high risk is in what we deem quite a stable environment, so not a lot else is changing, we're comfortable with the controls, could we look at moving that high risk review to a quarterly basis and possibly even out to a 6-monthly review cycle?
So if it was high risk but no change,
but no change, yes.
yeah, well, you could potentially make a category that reflected that
Yes.
as a subset of high risk. That would work perfectly well, wouldn't it?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so just there will be a bit of a change, and as we're reviewing our current framework, that'll obviously reflect that conversation, but yeah, didn't want to make any moves in that area without your committee's consideration. A good example of that obviously is the emerging international unrest risk, which we've put into our register recently, and yeah, although there's not a lot we can do in that area, it is under monthly review at the moment, so we could potentially move that into a more stable review cycle.
Alan, did you have a question?
I do have a few
Yeah.
actually. if I can.
Yeah, that's all right. I just see you looking.
Under the critical risk assurance,
Yep.
I'm just looking at the list of critical risks, you know, driving on road, aggressive customers, and those things rate
Yes.
at 1 and 2.
Yes,
Yet operating yet firearm rates the lowest
yes,
at 18.
yep,
And there's a whole lot of stuff above that. And wood chopper is rated low, as is operating a chainsaw. I thought they would be a lot higher risk than driving off road, for example.
yep. So there's a lot to consider that goes in the background of where a critical risk is positioned within our list. If we use 18 in the firearm use, we will note that we very rarely use firearms now. We do have good procedures in place around that, and we've got very few firearms. In fact, the team is assuring me that they're starting to phase them out completely. And if we went to like the wood chipper, for instance, we've had a couple of incidents with that machine. We've reviewed procedures and processes around that machine, and they're constantly under review. So we feel the procedures then support the use of that machine, and we haven't had any incidents recently.
So the risk is a lot lower because of that.
Because of that, yes. So the controls and the mitigations are in place. So if we go to something like driving and safe driving, we're doing a lot of it. We've got a big fleet on the road, and the incident reports are a lot higher in that area and trend a lot higher for a number of reasons, and it's not always our drivers that are at fault. But we can't remove that risk, or we can't do much more to mitigate in the space that we're in. And our ELT have actually just done a deep dive on that area, and they came away and gave us pretty much a green light on the confidence level of what we've got in place there. It doesn't remove the risk and doesn't reduce it much because of the number of small incidents that we're still seeing trickling through.
Right.
Does that answer the question?
It does. A small incident with a motor vehicle, I think a firearm would do a lot more damage. But
Absolutely, and we're very, that type of a
But
scenario
when
is
was
very
a firearm
comfortable.
last used by a member of the regional council?
quite often.
Is it?
Pardon, sorry, what was the?
I asked how often is a firearm used by a member of the regional council?
Not very often. Not at work. Most of our pest
Recreation.
mitigation is done through trapping, through poisons. That's probably a more heightened risk in the use of chemicals, and those biohazards that go with that. So, so again, always under review. What we've done just recently in the Health and Safety Committee is we've put a critical risk heat map in front of them and asked that to be distributed out to the stakeholders. And this list is always under review. So should an incident occur, should any of our teams or departments come back and say we want this moved up the list for whatever reason, then you'd see that reflected in the reporting.
Okay. We also noticed in that you've got like your biohazards, your chemicals, etc. You've had one person attend a ground safe standards,
Yes.
or grow safe standards, and I don't know if that's how that relates to the number of people that handle that. Is that a high proportion, or is it?
It's one person. It's a new person actually. That's a new team member. So they're on a regular refresher as determined by the standards of the industry. So it's just so happened that that person's fallen into this space. Again, we are that is an area that has been a considerable reduction in use, especially in like the gardens. And yeah, there will still be that requirement for pest management, but we're trying to pull back in that area as much as possible around chemical use.
Yeah, as it's known, I do struggle a little bit since it changed to a risk management report in December. That changed, and I can't remember the committee requiring that from a health and safety report, which has dropped into seems a lower part of the whole report. There was one under the health and safety wellbeing, page 41, the top one, which is strengthening health and safety governance through partnership with the Health and Safety Committee to deliver agreed priorities and provide assurance.
Yes.
That report on its own would be good to come back to that committee.
I'm open to how the whole committee feels.
Just repeat
in
that
area.
again.
So Chair, when we kicked off the committee, we established the Executive Audit and Risk Committee, and we started talking about risk management back in October last year. We signalled that we were looking to move to a more strategic focus rather than a day-to-day operational focus, and have the committee focusing on the key risks and all the rest of it. So whilst we're always happy to bring information through to the committee, we're trying to focus on the high level, the strategic, the important, rather than the day-to-day minutiae of be it risk or be it health and safety reporting or whatever. So that's the balance we've been trying to get. I've said on a few occasions, look, if we're going too far in one direction, please let us, or the other direction, please let us know. We can always refine this reporting, and it's a live, evolving piece of work. So if there's more detail you want in any particular area, please let us know. But we are trying to strike that balance between being strategic and rather than being day to day.
Thank you. I presume the strategic stuff would be happening. Well, it is happening, obviously. But to me, I'm more concerned about the well-being of the staff as opposed to the risk, the method you go to get to it. I did notice also that there were only 22 incidents requiring some action, which is fairly minor, but that still required 92 days off work because of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of background discussion on that point, but rest assured it has been very well managed in that area, and they were minor incidents. So
minor things, but it certainly came to a lot of days off work.
Absolutely, yeah. No, we try and manage that as closely as we can with the individuals involved.
Yeah, I think we leave the operational to operational, and we really do want to just have those peaks, and if there's something out there that we need to really focus on, I mean, that's really where the governance sits. And if you're managing within that operational, yes, you've got these incidents, but you're working towards that, and you're doing the training where necessary. I probably needed some training in falling off ladders just recently, but anyway.
I'm sure you've got a real talent for it.
So the results are actually good either. No.
One of the things that we used to report on was outstanding leave, because that's a risk to the organisation if you have someone accumulating vast amounts of leave. And I know we no longer do that. Is there a reason why that's off the table? Because in my line of work, people who don't take leave are a risk to an organisation.
So Chair, again, that was the move away from the day-to-day reporting back to the more strategic reporting. The reason we don't view that as a strategic risk is, as you would have noted from that reporting over the year or two that we did it, is that we don't have a particular problem with staff with long outstanding leave balances. Indeed, I was one of the biggest offenders, and I just took 5 weeks off in April and May to deal with that. Again, it's a matter of what are the really, yes, it can be a really important risk, but it's not for us, and certainly not at the moment. If it were to become a more important we were trying to see those levels building up and people not taking, we'd happily start including that as a more important strategic risk. But at this stage, it just isn't that far on our radar.
What you're speaking of, Mike, is where we are now.
Yes.
But we would not know if it suddenly started going backwards because there is no reporting on it. Now, for me, if we had a line that reported how many people had greater than, say, 8 weeks outstanding annual leave, then I would I would definitely be happy with that. I don't need to know anything more than that. But if it's accumulating, it is a risk to the organisation. And it becomes a risk because of all the issues that, and I'm not saying for a minute that that is the case here, but it is a classic indication of people are up to no good because they have to keep working to hide what they're up to keep it disguised. It's a risk to the organisation when someone exits and they've got a massive amount of unpaid, holiday pay due to them. It's a risk if they're not, in fact, taking downtime when they should and are overworking. And I don't mind where the line is drawn for reporting, but I think we should know if it's over that line. And I agree that you and Fred were probably the outliers back in the day, and you both harnessed that and reduced it greatly. But why wouldn't we have a line in our risk reporting that says that there are 3 people with greater than X or not?
Yeah, I'm very happy to incorporate that level of reporting into our future reporting.
Thank you.
I just have one more. On page 48, under the focus areas for 2006 and 7, is this something new or just explaining the process that you're going through?
And so, through you, Chair, as I said at the start of when I was speaking, this is very much a reset time of the year for us. So this is looking at what we're going to be focusing on over the next financial year, and how we are then aligning that with the work, the operationalising it, and individual strategies, as far as performance goes. So, yeah.
So the focus you've got there, the main things that you're highlighting is, do you think that's going to lead to less events and close calls within our staff by doing that?
Always trying to ensure that that's a good outcome. But yeah, always just looking at ways we can do health and safety better and more improving the systems to obviously minimise risk.
Right, because governance, it's not really about the delivery, it's
Right.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion. Pardon? Are you happy to second that, Jonathan?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Tom.
Okay, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Yes, carried. Okay, so we'll go on to tab 4, page 49, Council Controlled Organisation Statement of Intent. And once again, Amy, you're in the hot seat.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this memo is to receive the finalised statements of intent for both the Taranaki Stadium Trust and Regional Software Holdings. Previously, this committee has received and considered and provided feedback on the drafts, and there's no substantial changes to the final ones. Happy to speak to any or answer any questions, otherwise the recommendation is that they are both received.
I believe it's all pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll second. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
It's carried.
Right.
Thank you. So that was all good. And now we go on to tab 5, which is on page 103. So that's the Port Taranaki Statement of Corporate Intent, July 1st to 30th of June 29. And Amy again.
Thank you, Chair. So as with the others required for the beginning of the new financial year, the draft statement of intent is considered for presented for consideration. So this has been updated from last year, and this is an opportunity to provide feedback to the board. They have detailed in there notifying the current opportunities before them, such as the LNG import infrastructure and furthermore, and as well as the dynamic environment to which they operate in. They have outlined their forecasts for the annual dividend continuing to be 8 million for the first 3 financial years, noting that, that's consistent. However, due to, subject to prevailing economic conditions. Happy to take any questions or seek your feedback on the draft statement of intent.
Anyone got any questions? All pretty happy? It's
That's good
much the
news,
same.
RE, the dividend. Thank you.
Mm.
Very good news.
I just noted there the aquaculture. I just wondered where that was, but anyway, I can ask that question of the port next time we meet.
I'd be interested to know if anybody knows.
No, well, we might ask that.
Okay.
Mike, if we can just ask that question when next time we meet,
Sure. Yep.
if you wouldn't mind. Okay, I'm quite happy to move the recommendations. Do I have a second, Craig?
Sure.
All those in favour say aye. Against, carried.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move into public excluded. I'll move that, please. If we can just get everyone offline. Do we have a seconder? Craig again. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Sure, that brings us